Hi, I'm Anna Gielewska, editor-in-chief of Visegrad, a Central European investigative outlet. Listen to Visegrad Insight podcast, where we discuss our latest investigation on George Simion and mega people involved in Karol Nawrocki campaign.
Welcome to the Visegrad Insight podcast.
We bring you global experts on the future of democracy, security, and economy.
The leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Hosted by editors of Visegrad Insight.
Powered by Respublika Foundation from Warsaw, Poland.
It's Monday, 22nd of December 2025, and in our last episode before Christmas, we look at the investigative piece of our colleagues and partners from V-Square Front Story, who discovered that Mr. Simion, a former candidate in the Romanian presidential elections, has been deeply involved in influencing the campaign of Karol Nawrocki, president of Poland, in his presidential campaign earlier this year. Now, that would be not something unusual in the global affairs, if not the recent US national security strategy links to Mr. Simion claims that he is acting on behalf of Donald Trump, and the legal context in which Poland prohibits any foreign interference in electoral campaigns. Anna Gielewska has more to share, so tune in to our conversation. But before you do, check our weekly outlook available on Visegrad Insight website to subscribers only. Visegrad Christmas Carol, 3 Scrooges and no spirits. Learn about how Viktor Orban, Prime Minister of Hungary, Prime Minister Andrej Babiš, newly appointed in the Czech Republic, and Prime Minister Robert Fico sat down to recreate the alliance without Poland of Visegrad countries, meddling into the ambitions of making Europe really great again. My name is Wojciech Przybylski. I'm editor-in-chief of Visegrad Insight. Stay tuned and do subscribe. Merry Christmas. Anna, thanks for joining our podcast, and let's go straight to the point. In your recent cross-border investigation by Front Story, V-Square, and the third partner is, just remind me.
Context Romania from Bucharest.
Context Romania, yes. You have revealed how Romanian far-right figures and digital specialists allegedly provided undeclared support for Karol Nawrocki's successful presidential campaign this summer. And I mean, that's kind of a playbook we're really reading from various sources for what many politicians around the globe are promising to do, that is, influence someone else's electoral processes. And that's particularly significant for Europe and for European elections, as we also write in our report, Democracies at War, War on Democracies, while the European Union tries to establish a framework to protect from the influence, the external influence. But I'll have definitely questions whether we can calculate or consider with this influence, which is between member states of the European Union, that it is indeed a foreign influence. Now, my question to you is how this investigation reveals the kind of influence we are dealing with inside European Union. What's so revealing? What's so new about it?
Hi, Wojciech, and thank you for having me for this question. So basically, it all started with us together with Context Romania, so our Romanian colleagues and like colleagues in Poland and in Hungary. We started discussing how the mega movement has been growing in recent months, year especially. in our countries, and especially in Poland and Romania, because the involvement of George Simion into Polish politics seemed really surprising and somehow raising many questions from the beginning. So we thought, well, let's have a closer look, behind the scenes of both George Simion as a mega movement, self-proclaimed leader in our region, and simultaneously into him in relation specifically to Polish politics. And we started investigating that because already in the Polish election campaign in May, Simion was really involved. He was traveling to Poland quite often. He appeared in some rallies in Poland supporting Nawrocki. But every time he supported Nawrocki, he highlighted and stressed that this support is within the pro-Trump movement. Every time he started with saying, Donald Trump supports Karol Nawrocki, and I support Karol Nawrocki, and this was this kind of message, so strongly within the mega spirit. So it somehow was really interesting to us, because at the same time, we all knew Simion's own campaign in Romania, which he eventually lost, but won in a first round, and all this questionable relations and publications and statement regarding his the reasons, for example, his banned to Ukraine or Moldova, and his potential pro-Russian connections. So it was interesting, and finding step by step that he had this speeches during the events like CPAC in Rzeszów, and then I think I mentioned, or maybe not yet, I mentioned Zabrze, another rally. But then it turned out that he was back again to Poland when Nawrocki already won, to celebrate his victory. And that was the moment when he, Simion himself, and other mega leaders organized not very, public event, rather small event in Warsaw to celebrate Nawrocki's victory. And that was during this conference when Simion himself boasted in a way that was really amazing, to hear to me, because we have been already investigating this once we found out this video from this conference, when he said explicitly that his party is available to all conservative brothers in Europe, but also beyond. He mentioned specifically Moldova, Czech Republic, the Netherlands, Hungary, Cyprus, and Slovenia, saying that, my party is very good at working online. And that was when he himself said that they supported Nawrocki with online instruments they had to get young people to vote. And, that was something that made us immediately willing to learn more, what was the behind the scene of this support and these instruments.
Yeah, Anna, I think when you're talking about George Simion, and then for anyone who did not remember, or when you told about this politician, we should just go back into the end of last year, when he came out of nowhere, and through digital campaigning in Romania presidential race, he used all the tactics of amplification. He was boosted from basically, nobody expected he would dominate the campaign, and all of a sudden, his campaign was the leading campaign, this was a campaign that almost had him elected as a president. It's not that he lost these elections; he was barred from these elections because of using illegal toolbox. And there was a Russian, at least the Romanian authorities claimed that there was a Russian foreign interference, meaning outside of EU interference. But then again, I mean, I think the big story behind what you're saying is that once he was on track and he was demonstrating a case study of Romanian elections that he was basically barred from, then he started to go around and service the very similar type of influence operations, but as an EU national, to other EU members. Now, I wanted to ask you a follow-up questions on, we got it. I guess everybody who's listening got it. How you got interested in the story, but what convinced you that he actually had a significant and potentially decisive role in Nawrocki's victory? How do we know that what he did for Nawrocki actually mattered?
We don't. And of course, that perhaps should be somehow established in details. Although we can see parallel conclusions, I would say. So first of all, there is Simion himself saying it was decisive. Of course, he can, he can be wrong, but it's him specifically during the same speech claiming that the people, like the young people that they got out to vote, were decisive in this battle, and that they didn't ask anything in return because they are, conservative brothers. So basically, that's his claim. Of course, as I said, he may be wrong, but as you said, he was quite effective in his own campaign, winning the first round and being quite close to win elections that were actually, cancelled before, like the first approach to elections in Romania because of another guy who came out of nowhere from TikTok, Talin Georgescu. And then, he replaced Georgescu when he was banned from the following campaign. So he was really effective in his own campaign, and he had these people behind, and we really wanted to understand the kind of ecosystem behind and who are these people. So one of those is a company called Follow Digital Solutions from Romania that has been working for our party and Simion himself throughout his campaign, and got 2 million euros for that in less than 2 years. And the company itself, again, on its website, is boasting that they are super effective, and they basically collected millions of voters through the social media tools recently. So at least this is how they are promoting, and also they are still working already for a few years for Patryk Jaki, the Polish MP, who is quite effective in social media as well. And we know he's super influential when it comes to his Facebook profile. And this Facebook profile and his social media activities are run by the same company with quite a success. So while we don't know to what extent it was decisive, of course, let's keep in mind that typically in all those elections, the difference is really narrow, right? So So sometimes it's not much to it's not much needed to have this decisive role for the campaign. So probably there are no tools and data we can use to check like whether exactly these activities somehow were decisive. But of course they contributed, and they contributed. Like in a way that is recalled by both Simion, they contributed in a way that is recalled by Simion himself as decisive, and like taking all these puzzles, I think like it is at least something to really check and. If there are some ways to check that, I'm not saying journalistic, because journalistically probably like there is not much we can do more, and yeah.
If someone could know how to measure the influence of advertisement on actual behavior, be it a voter behavior or customer behavior in terms of basically advertisement for commercial purposes, probably this would be the holy grail of internet, and then we would probably be much more advanced. I mean, many people probably would be just switching to this kind of campaigning alone, and many people I think do because they make a bet that there is this influence. But I never came across any convincing evidence which would connect advertisement with exact behavior at the ballot box. You never know. And yet millions are spent, millions of euro, millions of dollars, millions of whichever currency for exactly that kind of activity, because probably people believe that at least they cannot let go of the field. Now, what makes your investigation special, I think, is also the context. You're publishing it just after national security strategy of the United States have been published, and that simply highlights and amplifies the ambition of the administration of Donald Trump 2.0 to influence national elections in Europe with so make Europe great again, aligned movements that vaguely corresponds to the MAGA movement of Donald Trump himself. Now, it seems controversial. At the same time, kind of we all expected that, and we've seen these attempts with Elon Musk in Germany. But I think the Polish-Romanian case is very specific, and especially if we go into this digital realm. I wanted to have you explain us what are the legal implications. What's the legal context of Polish electoral campaigns, and such an example of the let's say brotherly, because you refer to this brotherly narrative of Mr. Simion support in a campaign. Is it legal? Is it non-legal? Is it a gray zone? And what are the next steps? Where's the follow-up on that?
That's a great question to the Polish authorities. I really hope they will somehow start explaining this. Of course, now is this kind of holiday spirit and so on, but maybe after the break, they will somehow ask some serious questions, because like the situation is indeed tricky, at least because we know they were involved. Simion is saying this himself, so I understand they the law and justice politicians. I don't know. Maybe they will say he's lying. I'm really waiting for this. But at the same time, there is this online evidence, because the account of Mr. Nawrocki, but also of Mr. Yaki and some other MPs from Sovereign Poland party have their Facebook pages administrated from Romania. So, they somehow need to explain this. And the tricky part is that in Poland, the law is quite clear on any kind of support that the candidates are getting from other, people, entities, some services they get. We consulted that with some experts, including Krzysztof Wizdebski from Batory Foundation, and basically, like, everyone agrees that online support and social media online instruments that Simion has mentioned during his speech are not included in the unpaid support that the Polish candidate can obtain during the election campaign, because this is illegal to get some unpaid support. And Simion highlights that it was unpaid. They didn't accept anything in return. So it's really interesting, like how it's like what is the follow-up and how it goes from there. I hope the Polish Electoral Commission somehow will answer this question or make some statement, because this is this kind of non-monetary benefits that are like basically prohibited, but the Polish Electoral Code allows a very few exceptions. All of them are listed literally in this legal frame, and those are like, I don't know, office work, lending a car, or distributing leaflets, but not like services for online campaign. And in this case is also like at least some kind of advice, but also like what we know is that the Romanian social media specialists actually like help to set up some online tools. For example, ManyChat, which is itself kind of like interesting instrument. Maybe there were some others. I think like it would be good if somebody like explained this from the authorities, because these questions like remain so far unanswered. Like we cannot go further like with journalistic tools again.
Hi, if you're enjoying this episode, why not subscribe to Visegrad Insight? This gives you access to all our latest content online, as well as to our live and online events. You can use our special promo code for Visegrad Insight podcast listeners to get 35% off. Just go to visegradinsight.eu, choose a yearly subscription, and apply code Visegrad35. And now, back to the podcast.
On the question of legality and the decisions of the National Electoral Council, I think they were puzzled, at least what sort of interpretation to take, because both committees have had this uncoordinated external support from when I mention both, I mean the two final contenders, Mr. Nawrocki and Mr. Trzaskowski. And one was supported by a group from Austria with online amplification, and Mr. Nawrocki, apparently what you refer to has been supported by the far right Georgescu. I think what is more controversial in this case is the
Simion,
not Georgescu, absolutely. Yes, my bad. I mean, Mr. Georgescu was another candidate that actually apparently was boosted quite a lot in the repeated elections in Romania by the electorate of Mr. Simion. That's why I was already deep into the Romanian electoral campaign.
The other way around. Hang on, the other way around. First was Stalin, as I mentioned.
Yes.
Stalin Georgescu was first.
Yes,
and
and
then
he was
after the cancelled elections, it was Simion.
Georgescu was the first. Simion was going with Aur as the second. Yeah. Now I mixed it up, but both were tied, and the Romanian investigations that were also coming in the context of European Democracy Shield, basically giving additional rationale for the European Union to take on initiative to protect integrity of elections from such interference, was in particular highlighted. The focus was stronger simply because of the Romanian case and the elections, as candidates themselves seem to have blurred the line of what this online campaigning and how this amplification can go forward. Because typically, where I wanted to bring the controversy, typically we've been in agreement that foreign interference, meaning outside of the EU, is the one that is being scrutinized by European institutions. EU versus Disinfo, which is part of the European External Action Service, has been tracking all the automated, unauthentic amplification of certain narratives that are present in the public sphere. Now, Mr. Simion and Mr. Georgescu before him, they were both considered as very closely aligned with the Russian narratives. And that, I think, brings a spotlight specifically to not just Poland as a country overall, but add some spicy stuff to the fact that Mr. Nawrocki, who prides himself of being banned from Russia, he's not banned, he's actually a wanted person in Russia, as for his activity in the domain of public memory and public remembrance institute. He got all of a sudden pro-Russian support implicitly involved in getting elected. So I think that context is interesting in itself. But you probably might have, beyond the investigation, a couple of ideas. Could that be prevented? What kind of questions did you at least ask yourself when looking at such particular case? Should it be prevented? Could it be prevented?
So
what are the strategies that you had in mind?
That's like fascinating perspective you just shared, and I think like there are two aspects I would like to take on. So first of all, about like the both candidates in Poland having this ties to some kind of foreign interference. It is indeed a very like interesting situation that probably somehow shows us like this new new world of campaign which we are in, and like what to also focus on. Although of course like there was a lot of like misunderstanding, and also the Polish authorities did a really poor job revealing, not by revealing, but after revealing this foreign interference in Trzaskowski campaign, that at the end of the day, no one actually knows the details, and kind of like they were trying to play politically with that, which was very, very bad. But what is the difference to me is that, of course, while the authorities somehow didn't handle this that topic during the campaign properly, my understanding is still that this interference and campaign tied to Austria and Hungary in a way was first of all related to some NGOs distributing this campaign, right? And align with the agencies in Austria and supporting Nawrocki, supporting Trzaskowski with this campaign, like foreign, right? But it ended with the NGO, and here it ends at the heart of the Polish campaign team. So it's not that it was just support they were getting from some unknown, undefined entities, but like they were part of this. So I think this is the kind of difference when talking about these two cases, although both are somehow interesting from my perspective. But now going to this bigger picture and broader dimension. So that's super interesting how we now perceive the foreign influence within EU and beyond EU and so on. Because I completely agree that like it's quite easy when it comes to Russia or China, and when we have direct links or direct evidence that shows us there is this inauthentic behavior, we can react. Maybe there is some kind of sanctions evasion, because of course some of the Russian entities and propaganda channels, outlets are not only like banned but also sanctioned. So this is like kind of quite clear, black and white, more or less easy. It's much more blurred when it comes to some ecosystem of proxies within this bigger picture, and like the actual role of proxies and the links, whether they are conscious proxies or just unconscious, and just align with these goals. But it is within EU, and I think all actors within this ecosystem that want to influence the elections now within EU somehow are aware of it. So to each of them, even if they are not somehow collaborating, but like even if like they are acting independently and for themselves, for each of them, influencing some organizations or other politicians within this EU system is the most effective way, because of course it's always easier to have a far-right party influence and align with this external goals and influencing the situation in its own country domestically or regionally, like quite closely, than like to do it openly by other actors. So I think what is the most important way of approaching this is to trying to investigate and understand whether they are acting like independently. Those actors like AfD, and Marine Le Pen, and like far right representatives in the EU, like to what extent they are acting independently, and to what extent they are actually collaborating with, for example, Russian actors. And then like it goes beyond EU, like immediately. So to me, it's kind of like clear pattern we could approach within that, because then we don't have discussion like to what extent it is within EU or not, because this is actually like the role of proxy, and this is the same like pattern as we see with sanctions evasion. So, for example, the way of evading sanctions from Poland to Russia, for example, is to go through Turkey and have a proxy there. We can send stuff to Turkey and then Turkey sends it to Russia. In a way, this is like reverse kind of similar thing. So I think focusing on potential or alleged proxies if they are indeed proxies. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that, focusing on this level and understanding like what is its role is critical. Also, and kind of like we have already some tools. You mentioned Democracy Shield, but again, like I would look at sanctions procedures because they are also interesting to apply. So again, like with Viktor Orban, with Hungary, I mean, I don't think, of course, mega movement is specific, and it's not only one mega movement. There is one mega movement with Romanian mega leader George Simion now building this network within EU, and again, there are technical evidence. The same company, by the way, that is working for Simion, Iaki, and had this role in the Nawrocki campaign, is also running the mega website and organizing other events across the country. So there is a lot of evidence he is building this and his people. But also simultaneously, we have Orban building like his version of mega with Patriots for Europe. And we have also another stream that is mostly built around Heritage Foundation and like NGO kind of network and stream that is like again doing its own version. They are all collaborating and so on. So mega word in Europe now is already multi-level and of course overlapping with MAGA and so on. So I think understanding this this ecosystem and connections and kind of seeing like which connections end with Trump and MAGA, which go beyond, which overlap with some, I don't know, like pro-Russian actors and so on, is kind of like a lot of work to do. But at some point, I believe it will be like all this will be more clear. And in terms of some policy approach and some like concrete steps, like I think like Europe really needs to define its position now in relation to Trump, to MAGA movement, mega movement, in a way that like it defines the position against kind of hostile actor, right? That wants to interfere and influence EU space. So I think like it's like huge mindset shift that needs to be done in order to basically address this, really.
Yeah. Well, Anna, I think, first of all, kudos for a bombshell just before Christmas on your investigation. I think you're bringing really an interesting story, and we do recommend at Visegrad Insight to read the full material, be it in Polish, on Romanian, or in English at V-Square, to get to know the mechanics behind it and make up your own mind of, with the legal toolbox that you're aware of. I mean, our listeners are aware of, decide to what extent that should be allowed within the limits of the European context. I think what you provide as a potential investigation-based, but also politically driven decision is to what extent that should be then sanctioned, considering the activity like that could be considered only a proxy activity if there is an evidence of established linked, basically a commissioned job from a hostile actor from outside of EU legal space. So there is the EU context and Democracy Shield context that we also formulate. I think the biggest question, the most interesting question is, what do you do when you actually know that there is a declared ally that has a declared goal of influencing your political position this way? And when done openly, as an open book, it cannot be defined as, by the way, we know by which means, it can't be really defined as illegal action. And maybe that's a new reality to wake up to, rather than try to, legally and administratively combat that, rather to put for all the players to have equal playing field, similar toolkits available, so that they can do magic with them however they want, as long as they are not foreign hostile actors, but they are part of the alliance. Now, you probably hear the difference between your opinion and the United States. Yeah, and how I think still Donald Trump and the United States is still an ally, because formally speaking, they are an ally. When they are saying that Europe should be moving another direction, I'm looking at it with my eyebrows up. But I'm just wishing that Europe does the same to Donald Trump's America. And if he does that to influence the course of Europe, what's even more in the interest of the European Union is to influence the democratic course of America in the elections to come. And I think we should save it maybe as a Christmas carol message to our listeners, friends in the United States as well.
And that's all from this week's episode of the Visegrad Insight podcast, bringing you the leading voices from Central Europe and on Central Europe.
Make sure to subscribe, and we'll be in touch next week.